Booked for Murder, Chapter 6. Half-baked and books. Ivy looked around the cabin. It was neat and tidy, but definitely missing something. She loved the cabin, but it still didn't feel like home. Xander gave her Saturdays and Sundays off. He paid her once a month. Although it was a lot less than she was used to earning, the library and working with a talented author like Xander made it worth it. Holding her first paycheck in her hand, she decided it was the perfect time to spruce up the cabin. She tore a page out of the back of her journal, got out her favorite pencil, and tapped it on the paper, thinking. The sound of scratching at her door made her smile. She walked to the front door and opened it. "Good morning, Judy. Are you here for more love?" Judy's entire body wagged. "I realized something last night, Miss Judy. I realized that if you fall asleep reading an e-book, your phone falls and hits you in the nose. I don't think I can go one more day without a paper book in my hands." Ivy picked up her list and, while holding Judy, went through the French doors to the cabin's deck. She settled in on the Adirondack with Judy in her arms and the list on the arm of the chair. Books. Books are number one item on the list. I just need a few paperbacks, like a fish needs water. Then I need to cook. She closed her eyes, thought chocolate cake, and a copy of her grandmother's chocolate cake recipe on a plain 3x5 card crystallized in her mind. She wrote down the ingredients. Baker's chocolate, flour, eggs, sugar, milk, salt. She scratched off salt. There were 2 shakers full in the cabin. Powdered sugar, baking soda, baking powder, cream of tartar, vanilla. Oh dear, we need to make sure we have all the tools we need. She closed her eyes and searched for anything else she might need. She searched the cupboards and found mixing bowls, spoons, a spatula, measuring cups. There was 1 cake pan. She opened all the rest of the drawers and cupboards and then added cake knife, mixer, thrift store, olive oil, and vegetable oil to the list. After adding shampoo, toothpaste, and other toiletries, including toilet paper, she folded the list and put it in her jeans pocket. "Okay, Judy, it's time for you to go back to the house. I can't take you to town." She and Judy went out. She locked the door behind them and looked at Judy. She was sitting and staring back. Judy cocked her head. "Go home, Judy. Go find Xander." Judy didn't move. She panted and looked at her like she had been kicked. "Go on now. Time to go home." Ivy sighed and texted Andrews. Ivy to Andrews. "Can Judy come with me to town?" Andrews to Ivy. "As long as she comes home before midnight." Ivy to Andrews. "Ha ha." Andrews to Ivy. "Why are you going in? I have everything you could want." Ivy to Andrews. "Not everything." She scooped up Judy. "You in." She walked towards the gate in Balefire. The walk wasn't too long, 1 curve, and she was just at the locked gates. A bull elk was on the other side looking back at her. Bagels. Now what, Judy? Before she could turn around, she heard a noisy motor coming around the bend behind her. Anderson, driving a beat-up Range Rover, pulled up beside her. He got out and handed her the keys. "Xander said you could use this while you're working here. You need something to put groceries into." She breathed a sigh of relief. Pointing over her shoulder, she said, "What about the big fella? Shouldn't I wait until he leaves?" Anderson leaned into the vehicle and honked the horn. The elk didn't move. Finally, he slowly walked across the road into the trees and out of sight. "Do you always have a guard elk?" Ivy asked. He smiled at her. "Yes. Don't get too close to him. They're very unpredictable." A young woman wearing a white apron came out from behind the bakery counter in Mother Nature's grocery store. "Can I help you?" she said with a southern drawl. Ivy had been studying a beautifully decorated cake behind glass, looked up and said, "I love this store. Your cakes look amazing." "Why, thank you. I'm new to town. I think I found everything I need. Except yeast. Do you have or sell bags of yeast? I use a lot," Ivy said. "No, we're a small grocery store. They have bags at the big store up the coast. But it's nice to meet you. I'm Barb, and we have the packets." "That'll work. Can you tell me what aisle they're on?" Ivy looked over her basket and grinned. She had a large bag of flour, spices, vanilla, sugar, cinnamon sticks, and real butter. "I'll take you, but you won't get lost in this tiny place. Pinky swear." Ivy laughed. She followed her to an end cap that had everything she wanted on it, including yeast. She put a rolling pin in her cart along with parchment paper and other necessary ingredients for happiness. "What are you baking?" Barb asked. "My great-great-grandmother's cinnamon rolls," Ivy said. She couldn't stop smiling. Everything felt so good. Books, baking, and working in the library again. Oh, and chocolate cake. You know, Aggie makes the best cinnamon rolls in town, right? Barb said. She folded her arms and looked her up and down. Well, I know. I want to share my recipe with her. She's been so kind, Ivy said. That's our Aggie, mother to the world and baking magic constantly. You aren't going to sell your rolls, are you? We don't need another tea shop, you know. Barbara's right brow rose. I wouldn't dream of it. I just want to give a friend a gift of bread, Ivy said. Aren't you supposed to get the bread when you're new in town? Ivy chuckled. I'm going to be living behind a locked gate, so I won't get any surprise welcome baskets. Now that's a shame, Barbara frowned. But I will bring my welcome cinnamon buns. You're a keeper. Ivy shook her head. Not even. Being kept is not something I want. Barb threw her head back and laughed. Now you're speaking my language. No one's going to mess with me, I promise. You're going to need one more thing, though. What's that? Paper plates with decorative flowers, tin foil, paper, and rope. You can't drop a bun on a doorstep without a proper presentation. You and I are going to be friends, Barbara. Then I'll have to bake you a cake, Barbara said. She cackled, and Ivy felt a little more at home. Jessica was emptying boxes of new books at the register when Ivy arrived. Ivy, it's nice to see you again. You know you're invited to our daily book club. Thanks. That's really nice. Xander's letting me drive his Range Rover so I can get past the elk. Ivy held up the keys and smiled. They are something, aren't they? Jessica winked at her. That's very generous of Xander. But then, he's a generous man. I would love coming to your group and ask more questions about Bonnie, Ivy thought. I've decided to decorate the cabin and make it a little homier, Ivy said. There's a furniture store down the street around the corner, Aggie said. I need something much more important than furniture. I need books. Oh, Jessica chuckled. This week's best-selling books are all on that table. She pointed to a table behind the register. I feel like I haven't eaten in months. I'm starving for a good book, Ivy said. One should never be without at least one good read at all times, Jessica said. She grinned and winked. One should always have dessert on hand. I'm going to bake my grandmother's favorite chocolate cake, make my favorite cacao drink, and fall into a novel. What book would you recommend? Ivy dipped her cake knife in a large cup of cold water and smoothed the chocolate frosting on the top and side of Baba's chocolate cake. Then she used the cabin's vegetable peeler to shave chocolate curls off a dark chocolate bar and sprinkle them on top of the cake. Then she made chocolate curls using milk chocolate bar and sprinkled them among the dark chocolate on the top of the cake. Judy sat at her feet watching her. She let out a little whine. Don't worry, my friend, I bought you dessert too. Ivy opened the cupboard and got out a new bully stick. She opened the bully stick holder she purchased from the local pet store. Judy's tail wagged and she jumped up to reach the stick. Judy put her paws on Ivy's leg, wagging joyfully. Patience, princess. You're high maintenance, you know that, Judy? When Judy was settled, Ivy got out her new bowl. When she bought the mixer, she also picked up 2 place settings of odd dishes and a water bowl for Judy. I can't believe I found a blue willow plate and bowl, Judy. It's like Baba's, perfect for her cake. She stepped back and enjoyed the feeling of creating something beautiful and practical, all at the same time. Now, if I can stop myself from eating the whole cake tonight, life will be perfect. She cut a piece of cake and topped it with vanilla ice cream. She pushed down the plunger on her new, used French press. She poured her hot cacao into a heavy mug that said, "Gather," on the side. She put vegan coconut creamer into her cacao. After putting on her black hoodie, she opened the French doors, borrowed the end table from the living room, and sat it next to the Adirondack. Judy followed her out and climbed into the chair. Ivy smiled. See, high maintenance. Don't worry, I have another chair. She pulled the other Adirondack out. She arranged the chairs so the table was between them. Then she checked her watch. Perfect timing. Judy ignored her and chewed on her bully stick. She brought out her steaming cup of cacao, her chocolate cake, a cloth napkin, and an antique silver sugar spoon she'd fallen in love with at the thrift store. It was chilly, so she put her hood up and got the last necessary item for the evening, her book and booklight. Silently, she sat cross-legged in the chair and ate cake while the sun began sinking over the ocean. The sky turned salmon, deep blue, teal, and then gradually became a surreal mix of red and orange. The closer the golden sun got to the horizon, the more red and beautiful it was. She sipped her cacao, holding the welcoming warm mug in her hands, watching, waiting. Her current research on a rare book of Xander's flitted across her mind. It was an 1870 first edition Charles Dickens, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, unfinished and illustrated novel. No, she told herself. Not now. Once she dove into researching the book, or anything she worked on for that matter, she had to wrestle with herself to stop working, thinking, and driving herself until she had the answer. Dickens had died while writing the 23rd chapter of the novel. He'd had a stroke at the very young age of 58, if she remembered correctly. The illustrations were beautiful, but to have a book without an ending, especially a mystery, was like a bit of torture to the mind, like Ivy's. You know an unsolved mystery's torture, Jody. She ate a spoonful of cake and ice cream. No, I'm not going to let unfinished work follow me to bed and keep me up all night. I mean, look at this place. Judy looked at her. Not me, silly. Out there. The bay was empty of boats. The only sounds were the waves on the rocks, like a heartbeat, and the rustling of the trees when an occasional gust of wind tried to shake their pine needles loose. They say there's a green flash, Judy. She told herself to focus on the sound of the ocean, the smell of pine and sea, and her favorite warm drink. The safety she felt in that moment filled her with gratitude. Judy's head popped up and she whined softly. No flash yet, girl. But Judy stayed frozen, looking toward the house. She followed her line of sight. It was so dark she couldn't see any details. The only light came from the patio where the motion sensors turned security floodlights on. Xander and Veronica were standing by the library doors. Their voices floated on the breeze in snippets. They were standing very close to each other. Her head was down. He was leaning over her. Ivy couldn't look away. Why does it hurt? Ivy Kelly, she told herself. Just get over yourself. He wants your mad librarian skills. Xander stepped back and followed Veronica down the patio stairs, across the lawn, and over to his vehicle. He held the passenger door open for her, got in, and drove slowly toward the gates. Ivy realized she was holding her breath. Then she hiccuped. Is he having an affair with her? Xander won't be the man I think he is if he can cheat on his best friend. Judy's head tilted as she watched Ivy intently. When am I going to learn, Judy? Hiccup. She didn't want any of it to be true, but she knew her parents, the people she trusted most in all the world, were gone. She said, mostly to herself, there's no one in the world who isn't thinking of themselves. She looked out to sea, realizing she'd missed the green flash. What if he did it, Judy? I am so gullible. What if he does it again? Judy crossed the table, her small paws just missed the cake, climbed into Ivy's lap. This is going to keep me up all night. I knew this was all too good to be true. I need more cake. Hi, this is Shannon Symonds, and I am the author of Book for Murder, and this is a work in progress. So I'm reading aloud so that I can catch all of my errors and mistakes, and I think I caught about 10 while I was reading this last time. The cake that I'm talking about in this chapter, I'm going to put the recipe at the end of the book. I'm also going to put the recipe for the cinnamon rolls. So Baba was my grandmother. The chocolate cake, I think, was her mother's. And it's a recipe we all have in her handwriting in our little recipe boxes because all of her grandchildren just love her that much. It's the birthday cake that everybody gets when the family has a birthday together. And the cinnamon rolls were my mother's side of the family, and they were her great-grandmother's or her grandmother's recipe, which would be my great-grandmother's. We're not really sure how far back it goes. It is a really easy recipe, and it's delicious. And it's something that I put in an article I wrote for Deseret News in Utah for a general conference weekend. And it's just amazing. It's an amazingly easy, yummy recipe. So I don't know about you, but reading and baking, they're kind of relaxing. I am not a great cook, but I do like to bake. And I have to admit, this weekend I made some of the best chocolate chip cookies ever. And they've got to leave the house on a plate to go somewhere, or I'm going to eat them all. So thanks for listening, and let me know what you think. Comment or subscribe. Share it with your friends and give me some feedback.